Hello, this is Kale Casey, Information Officer with the Alaska team, with a September 11th update with Strategic Planning Operations Specialist, Brad Washa. Brad, how about you introduce yourself?
Brad Washa, I'm with the Alaska Incident Management Team. I'm the 4 operations section chiefs on the fire. We have 4 of them. One's a line ops, who's basically out there running the operations as we speak. We have a planning ops that's basically taking information from today and projecting it for our plan for tomorrow. We also have, we don't have a night operations yet, but we anticipate night operations in the next few days. And then myself, I'm the strategic operations section chief, and I'm kind of responsible looking tomorrow and beyond, high level, and looking at where the fire might be in the next week to a month is my general function on this fire.
Okay, great. Thanks, Brad. The fire has grown up to almost 86,000 acres. There's 1,000 personnel. We know you have a lot of comments on Facebook. We're seeing them. Everybody is deeply impacted by this smoke. Let's talk a little bit about that, because though you do look at where the fire might move, we did have that big pyrocumulus on the west side yesterday, and with those trade winds, that seemed to be what's really spreading ash all over everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday, or actually Friday, we had that easterly wind event, which kind of expanded the fire quite a bit. Yesterday, the winds, we didn't have as much of an easterly wind event and actually had more of a southerly wind event, but as the winds have decreased, that smoke's just kind of settling in and isn't being cleared out by the wind. We did have a little bit of activity on our zone, and our zone, we're responsible basically from Waldo Lake to the east with other incident management team, Northwest 6, managing the west side of the fire.
Now, for at least on the east side, all the values around Odell Lake, Waldo Lake, Little Cultus, Cultus itself, and up towards Lava and Elk Lake, those are all just fine. They're out of our area where the fire is impacted right now. But Brad uses software. Why don't you tell us about the SF Pro runs that you use to determine how that might move?
So we do a number of fire behavior modeling runs, both looking at short-term advancement of the fire and also long-term, looking, everywhere from 7 to 14 days out, just projecting under the current weather conditions for the next few days and then climatological data, where this fire may go if we're not able to take suppression actions on the fire. And currently on our zone, we were doing some direct work yesterday in the Waldo Lake area, but we've pulled those resources out because we were not being successful with that, just because the fire activity and the spotting that's occurring. We're not being successful going direct. So we have pulled out to do what we call indirect. So we've pulled away from the fire and preparing areas that at a later point in time that we might be able to burn out if the fire makes it that far. But our modeling is showing it's staying at least within the next 7 days within kind of the box we've created for this fire. And but prepping and in anticipation that this fire could go for another several weeks to a month until we get what we call a season-ending event, until rains start coming into the area.
Okay, great. Let's talk a little bit about that box. There's the 4290 road that is being prepped, and then the 46 corridor with all the crews and the masticators working along here. Where else does the box go?
So the 4692 road, we don't feel like there's a lot of success on that road. It's the terrain and everything like that doesn't provide a lot of success, but we are working that road kind of as a checking mechanism to stall the fire from moving farther south, because once it gets below the 4290 road, this is what's called a roadless area, and there are no roads in there. So there's really not a nice feature to check it. So we are looking beyond that, continuing work down the 46 road, looking at the Lava Odell road, and then back up the 58 road. And then also looking at fire from the other zone has made its way, we're worried about it hooking around below Waldo Lake and looking at options to hold it in there. Again, checking it eventually we will get what's called a season-ending event, rain and snow that will stop the fire. But also looking at where are values at risk, where are there structures, where are there, maybe a T&E species that threaten an endangered species or sensitive species that we want to protect. So looking at all those elements and potentially doing what we call point protection, where we're not doing a direct line, but that we're actually going around structures and cleaning the vegetation around there, putting sprinkler systems up and that sort of thing.
Okay, and then we've been noticing on the comments, there are definitely those who have been in the fire service family, what we call the Green Pants Nation before, and those who are kind of armchair quarterback firefighters who probably have never been on the fire line. What's the big difference in your 33-year career with going direct? I think a lot of folks just hope at home, and hope is not a strategy, by the way, that you can just go direct all the time. Why don't you just go direct, Brad?
Well, go direct is the availability of resources, or the right type of resources. We don't have the hotshot crews, the type 1 crews to put and go direct. That's one of our things as far as resources, but we do have a lot of logging type resources available that we're doing, like shaded fuel breaks along these roads, and we feel that with those resources would not be able to go direct, so those resources are best utilized going indirect, again, away from the fire itself. Also the conditions, even yesterday with that somewhat of an easterly component to the winds, southeasterly, we were getting spotting a quarter mile out from the fire itself. So if you're putting direct line in and you're getting spotting a quarter mile out, one thing, you're putting those firefighters at risk, and that strategy is not going to be successful either if you're getting spotting that far out. Again, that was going against the wind, partly because we did have a little bit of convective development and the spots came out from that, but quarter mile out.
So I can already think about it. People are asking, where are the hotshot crews in the fire? They are engaged in other areas, mainly where there's more houses and values at risk. But on these large complexity fires now, fire crews are spread all throughout Oregon, Washington, different states, different part of the country, and there's only so many. So we do have hotshot crews on the fire, but they just can't be everywhere. There's only so many personnel available these days. When we talk about spotting, Brad, just describe to folks at home who might not understand what that means. What is spotting?
So spotting is where a tree might, what we call torch out, crown out. So the fire takes off in the tree and it throws embers up, lofts embers up into the air. Those embers then land on a piece of fuel, a down log, some needles that are in the forest floor, starts a new fire. So that's how a spot starts. One of the things that is really accentuating the spotting here is the old man's beard, the lichen or the moss in the trees that catches on fire, and it lofts up a little bit better than just a needle or that, and sustains heat for a longer period of time.
Okay, I think that really helps folks. And spotting is a natural part of fire growth, but it's extremely dry, and it does seem like there's a lot more lichen in these forests than, for example, that we see in other parts of the United States. And you've traveled to probably all the states at this point in your career.
Yeah, all the western states at least, and other parts including Australia. So.
Yeah, so Brad's been around quite a bit. Continue those questions. I'm going to ask him a couple more, and then we're going to close this out because we have to get moving on. But we try to bring you this feature, and it's not so much to answer specific West Zone answers. It's to give you an additional look at a subject matter expert. We have a 33-year career firefighter here. We want to make sure that you're able to access his knowledge. He's using technology, using modeling runs, and then that vast experience. What's kind of the health of the forest around here? It seems like there's been some fuel treatments that are looking really good out here, but then there's other areas that look really thick and densely packed.
There have been fuel treatments and old logging units along the 40 corridor. Again, part of the reason why this area is roadless is because there's lava flows that have gone in there. It wasn't suitable for logging or roads. So those areas, from a forest health standpoint, there's some forest health concerns, but another thing that's going on here is a lot of this area has not experienced fire because of our suppression efforts over the last 100+ years. So those forests, largely lodgepole pine, there's some ponderosa pine mixed in there, some hemlock, but largely driven by lodgepole pine, that forest would experience fire every 100 to 200 years, on 150 year on average. So that area has not experienced fire during that time. So when fire does come through, it is a little more explosive. But again, the lodgepole pine forests, that fire regime actually, it actually likes large fires that are crown fires that we call crown destroying disturbances. And so that's in some ways a natural part of that ecosystem.
So when you prevent fire like we have from being in these areas, does it make it more explosive? Does it make it hotter? Does it make it spot more? Does it make it actually harder to actually suppress when it does finally get in there?
By preventing fire over the years, it has built up what we call fuel. So you do have some more deadened down logs and some trees that have some forest health issues because the competition that's occurring there. And then that's been compromised by the prolonged drought that we've experienced throughout the West, and some places, for the past 20 years or so. And, you can see that evident in looking at some of the lakes around here, how low these lakes and reservoirs are. They don't have the amount of water that they once did.
Okay, great. And I know folks who have been asking questions about the other zone, please, those operation videos are up. This is your chance to get a deep dive. We really appreciate all the praise and comments for the firefighters. They do watch these feeds, and so do their families. We're all one Green Pants Nation. These are all challenging fires, and people are far away from home, working on tough conditions, sleeping on the ground, and trying to get this done for everybody. So we are all in this together. We appreciate it, and we'll come back with you when we can. Thanks.